Welcome to the Life You Crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello, my femmes. Here at the Life You Crave podcast, we are re-releasing some of our greatest hits, podcasts from our show that have had the most downloads, the most popularity. We wanted to re-release them here so that they would be right at the top of your podcast feed so that you can dive in and enjoy all summer long. And if you haven't already, please head over to Facebook and find me, Leah Pinelli, and join our Life You Crave community there. It is our podcast community where we are expanding on what you are learning on the episode, diving deeper, building community, and having a lot of fun. So come on over to Leah Pinelli over at Facebook and join my Life You Crave community there. Can't wait to see you. Do you ever feel like you can eat and never really feel satisfied, and maybe even find it hard to stop because the food tastes so good? Or maybe you're not stopping because you're looking for that feeling of satisfaction, but it just never seems to come, like you just can't find it. I used to be like that. Spoonfuls of pasta, mac and cheese, bread and butter, cheese and crackers. There didn't seem to be an off switch until I was totally overstuffed. I could pick at food and eat for days and never really feel satisfied. I'd always been the girl with the big appetite. I could eat as much as my 6'7" husband and not feel a thing physically. I couldn't figure out why I was insatiable. Always had been, until I learned about a concept called overhunger, which is what I'm talking about today on the show. Now, on the show last week, I told you all about the first step in my journey to losing 30 pounds without dieting. I shared with you how I learned about the hunger scale and how I used it to eat only when I was hungry and stop when I was full. And while this was a total game changer for me, it didn't help me with overhunger. For example, every morning I would eat 2 pieces of whole grain toast with 2 fried eggs and half of an avocado every day for breakfast, and still be hungry 2 hours later. It was disruptive to my life. My hunger was disruptive. I didn't want to be hungry 2 hours later. I wanted to be focused on my career, on what was in front of me. I wanted to be present in the moment and not thinking about how to squeeze in a snack between classes. What I was experiencing, I know now, was this concept of overhunger, which is essentially the feeling of not finding satisfaction despite eating plenty of food. It also can present itself as you feeling hungrier than other people, right? You noticing that everyone else is kind of finished eating and seems to feel satisfied while you're still wanting more and more. And maybe it also shows up like it did for me with breakfast, in that noticing that when everyone had eaten around the same thing at the same time, you were ready for a snack before anyone else. If you experience this too, here's what I want you to know. You're not imagining it. And more importantly, you're not broken. You're not lacking willpower or discipline. And despite what you've been telling yourself all these years, there is nothing wrong with you. I used to tell myself the same shit. If I just had more discipline, if I just had more self-control. But all of that is total BS. And here's why. Overhunger is the result of your body's biochemical reaction to what you're eating on a regular basis. It's the actual biochemistry that occurs after eating certain foods. When we eat, our bodies respond by releasing a cocktail of hormones that do their job to convert your food for immediate fuel, store what you don't need right now for later use, which is awesome, and also that cocktail of hormones sends out reward signals to encourage you to repeat this action of eating in the future so that you don't starve to death. These hormones also tell you when to start eating and when to stop. This is all good stuff. This is what our body is designed to do. But what happens in our modern world when we totally F with our food production, right? Like we screw with it so much, hello food agriculture, hello big business, right? Hello heavily processed foods. When we manipulate foods in this way, it throws our bodies out of whack, completely messing with that hormone cocktail that, Mother Nature made for us by design. It messes with all of that. It messes with our hunger and satiety signals. And most importantly for this episode, it increases our hunger drive overall. This is exactly what I experienced for pretty much my entire life. An over-hungry drive to eat. I experienced this for pretty much my whole life until I figured out how to undo it. Now, before I dive into how to undo it and how this throws our bodies out of whack, let me just say that you need not worry. I am not here to demonize processed foods. I am not on board, actually, with labeling any foods as bad. The assignment of morality to foods is highly problematic on many levels, but in particular, the term bad in and of itself is a judgment. So not only are we judging the food, but we are by extension judging those who eat those foods, including ourselves. We become bad when we eat bad food, right? And people say this all the time. I'm so bad. I ate chocolate cake. We equate the morality of food with our own morality, which is total BS. So let's just not do that. Okay? There's no good food. There's no bad food. In fact, I use the term, instead of bad food, I choose to label food as either good, better, or best. Nothing else. The way I decide which category a food fits into is determined by its nutrient density. High nutrient foods, such as dark leafy greens or blueberries, they go into the best category. Medium nutrient foods, such as a super burrito with a big flour tortilla and rice and beans and meat, sour cream, cheese, and guacamole, that may go into the better category. And low nutrient foods, such as a McDonald's Happy Meal, might go in the good category. But note that the only options are good, better, and best. There's no bad category. Now that we've established that, let's return to how processed foods throw our bodies out of whack by dysregulating our hunger and satiety levels and increasing our hunger drive. When we eat any food, our pancreas releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin is sometimes called the storage hormone, and its job is to use the glucose that you just got from whatever you ate for immediate energy. And any excess glucose, i.e. energy, gets moved into storage for future use. That storage is otherwise known as fat. Now, first of all, can we just marvel at the efficiency of our amazing bodies? Like, hallelujah, sister, that our bodies are smart enough to store fuel, right? Because back in the day, we didn't have refrigerators. Back in the day, we couldn't just go down to the local corner store and get a frozen burrito and heat it up right there, right? Like, we did not have access to food the way that we do now. Not to mention, we could expect in our lifetime to suffer many periods of famine. So our bodies are the highly sophisticated machines that they are. Our bodies figured out how to store fuel on them so that we don't die during a famine. So go ahead and thank your body and love on those fat rolls, right? Because they are there to keep you alive. So what's important to understand about insulin is that not only does it store fuel for later use in the form of fat, but it also increases our hunger drive, which means that the more insulin your body is producing, the hungrier you'll be. This matters because processed foods, which I think of sometimes as concentrated foods, meaning you've taken a plant like a wheat plant or sugarcane, you have concentrated that plant into a powder, and therefore it's now a concentrated food, right? The processed food becomes concentration of whatever that plant originally was, wheat, for example. When we take those concentrated foods and we eat them, we get a concentrated response in our body, so to speak. We get a concentrated insulin response, meaning when we eat concentrated processed foods, our bodies produce even more insulin than if we had just eaten the whole plant. This, in turn, keeps us hungry because insulin keeps us hungry. In other words, for some people like me, and maybe you, the more processed foods we eat, the more insulin we have pumping in our bodies, and the hungrier we will be. The hungrier you are, the more you'll eat. Particularly, the more you'll eat of the processed foods, perpetuating the cycle of hunger. This is overhunger, and this is exactly what I had been experiencing for pretty much my whole life. Essentially, processed foods cause hormonal dysregulation in my body, and luckily, that problem can be solved. Now, let me just say that processed foods don't necessarily cause the hormonal dysregulation that causes weight gain or even overeating for everyone. But for some of us, such as myself and the dozens and dozens of clients that I've now worked with, that is exactly what is happening for us. And we know it. We know that that's what's happening for us because we feel overhunger. We identify with that feeling of being constantly hungry, hungrier than other people, and feeling like it's hard to get satisfied with food. So, what's the solution? The solution was to reduce my consumption of processed foods so that my body could naturally regulate itself back to its natural state. But wait, what? Slow your roll, sister. I'm Italian-American, right? Like, I have to eat pasta or I'll be disowned. A life without processed foods like bread or my mama's rigatoni sounds like a death sentence to me. The good news, you guys, is that reduction does not mean elimination. Eliminating overhunger does not mean eliminating processed foods completely. But how much you eat in order to get the results of eliminating overhunger is going to be different for everyone. Now, in my 90 Days to Food Freedom program, I teach a 4-step process rooted in neuroscience and psychology that walks my clients through the process of figuring this out for themselves in a way that truly reduces their hunger and actually feels good, not bad. Not willpower, not discipline, not deprivation, but it feels good. And that is the most important thing I can impart on you today. When you eliminate overhunger, you should feel better than you felt when you started, not worse. And that becomes the motivator. Feeling good becomes the motivator. And when you feel good, then you don't have to use willpower or discipline to sustain it because now you are going to gravitate and shift your lifestyle so that you can feel good on a daily basis. That's the difference between reducing processed foods so that you can end over hunger and actually feel better and going on a diet. Now, if I was on a diet, my breakfast sandwich with 2 pieces of toast and a half an avocado and a couple of eggs, I would be telling myself, well, I need to, just have a hard-boiled egg that has no fat on it and maybe have no bread and just eat the hard-boiled egg and a quarter of an avocado. I remember that's what Weight Watchers would make me do, or eat some like the bread that just tastes like air, and it wouldn't taste good. It wouldn't feel good, and I would still be hungry. But in this way, when I actually reduce the amount of processed foods that I'm eating, I find that 2 hours later, I'm not hungry and I'm not thinking about food and I feel satiated. I feel satiated more quickly and I feel more satiated with what I've eaten and I have deeply enjoyed what I have eaten. Now, you and I both know that if you tell yourself, I can't eat processed foods, you're going to feel like shit. So don't do that. You're a grown-ass woman. You can eat whatever the F you want. But ask yourself, do you really want to eat something that is going to keep you hungry all day long? I know I don't. I want to feel satisfied, but I also don't want to eliminate it completely. So that's why I did the work to figure out the perfect ratio for me, for my one unique body. And I figured that out by going through my own 4-step process that I now teach my clients in my 90 Days to Food Freedom program. I encourage you to play with your processed food intake and allow yourself to be curious about how it impacts your hunger levels. You are not doing this to lose weight. This is not a diet for weight loss. And the purpose in and of itself is not weight loss. Instead, this is a method of eradicating overhunger in your life. Weight loss is just the byproduct of that. When you reduce your hunger to its natural state, you can live at your natural weight with minimal effort. The way you will know if you've reduced processed foods enough is that you'll be less hungry around the clock and you're going to feel a hell of a lot better. But here's a word of caution. If you find yourself using willpower and discipline, I promise you're doing it wrong. You're falling into the diet mentality trap, and I guarantee you won't stick with it and will be painful. When my clients reduce processed foods, they're usually floored by how infrequently they feel hunger, and they are one step closer to food freedom because they're no longer thinking constantly about food. If you're ready for a personalized approach to figuring out how you too can reduce your hunger levels to natural states like I did, head over to leahpinelli.com and book a coffee chat with me so we can see if my 90 Days to Food Freedom program is right for you. On this episode today, we talked about how processed foods cause hormonal dysregulation in our bodies, resulting in overhunger. We also talked about the fact that reducing processed foods is the answer to reducing hunger, and that everyone's threshold for that will be different. I am wishing you nothing but love and an abundance of curiosity on your journey. Ciao.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.